Detective Captain Tim Davis with the Greeneville Police Department joins us in our studios this morning, and everybody out there should stop everything you're doing and listen to Tim Davis today. And I mean that with most sincerity, Tim. Good morning first, and thank you for coming down.
Thank you for having me, Ron. Glad to be here.
We're going to talk today about, I guess for lack of a better term, let's just call it phone scams. And these are people that call and prey upon the goodness and kindness of other individuals.
That's true, and it happens year round. This time of year, the season's here, and predators they prey on people and their heartstrings whenever they get the chance. But the spirit of this season seems to bring people's goodness out more than ever.
So Ray and I were talking about it. He got a call, and we're going to play a portion of it here in a little bit. And it's similar to another call that he had gotten. In this particular scenario, there is an issue with his grandson. He has been involved in an accident, and money is needed to fix that problem. But does that not just fit kind of a broader... It's the same thing over and over. It's the same kind of call that other people will get, just changing the details. Grandson, granddaughter, been in a wreck, got sick. It's an easy pattern to follow.
They follow the same script. They just change the players, and they'll tweak it a little bit here and there. It's kind of like the sitcoms of elder years. Yeah. They would take that same broad spectrum and change some things and plug it in, and it works. Why change the script if it's working? Because it is working.
Why do you find that it works? When you've talked to people that have gone through that, what has been maybe the common theme that everybody says in hindsight, I missed the big reveal there?
Well, biggest thing is for me and from my personal experience, having kids. You want to take care of your kids, but you know where they're at.
Right.
My parents tell me that grandkids are a whole different scenario.
Yeah.
That they're a whole different creature, and I see it in the way that my mom and my dad treat my children over the way that they treated me. And I think I hear that amongst everybody.
That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, well, but I think that's what they do is they target and they want to use our older citizens, and they want to use grandchildren, and how they know that the kids are out, and most of the time, most of what we've run across is they're out of town, they're away from home, they're traveling. And sometimes you can account that to they posted on social media, and it's open for the world to see, so they know they're going, and how they find out that this person is related to them. And it's most of what we found it tracks way out of the state, most possibly out of the country, but we're talking about professional con people that run these. So they end up making contact with them and saying, your child, your grandchild, your nephew, whoever has been in an accident or been involved in a criminal incident, and we need money to get them out of this, whatever the incident is. And where they probably wouldn't for their child when they were in the parenting years, now that heart bleeds for this grandchild, and the first thing they want to do is, and what we've dealt with most is it's somebody saying they're with a legal profession, an attorney's representative. I need to get them the money, so they'll Western Union send them a MoneyGram. Some of them even they go and they get the Green Dot cards at the local Walgreens, grocery store, whatever, and give them that number off the back. The latest one I've dealt with sent cash through FedEx.
So, when you get a call that your child or grandchild is hurt or been injured or in a wreck, do you find that, instantly your mind goes into the spin cycle where I think you don't process correctly after that. If the first 2 or 3 sentences make sense, and we're going to get to Ray's specific calls in just a little bit. Your grandson is out of town. He is in Cookeville, and he's been involved in an accident. Ray's grandson is, in fact, in Cookeville. Well, instantly, I'm not going to process the rest of that information correctly or safely. So is it a little bit of a fishing expedition that they're just going to call until they hit the right tone with somebody?
Yes. I'll use my dad, for example. My kids have always called my father something besides Papa or Granddad.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use that word, that terminology, but they've called him this particular name, and you probably know it. But he, if you've been around him, but phone rings, he answers the telephone, and the person on the other end says, Papa, I've been in a wreck and I need money. They're going to put me in jail. And my dad says, who is this? He said, well, Papa, it's Owen. He said, well, you don't sound like him.
Yeah.
And I've trained, I've harped at my dad, my mom, and I've harped, and they've heard me. And if you've been around me, I don't give up on things easy. But I can't get him just to do what I tell him to do, which is just hang the phone up. That's my advice on any of those. If you don't know that person. But he said, sound like his nose was mashed. It's what he told him. He said, I've been in a wreck. My nose is mashed. I don't sound like myself. And so my dad plays the game for a little while longer until he gets to the point where he asks for money. And then he said, well, you're not my grandson because you don't know what to call me. And hung the phone up on him. Now, had my son grown up calling my dad Grandpa, that may have took a little bit. Yeah. Hopefully my dad would have hung the telephone up and called me and said, have you talked to, and I could have made a couple of phone calls because I'm going to process that a little different. That's my suggestion to anybody that gets one of those phone calls. Stop. Just stop. Don't let your heart take over. Your brain's racing faster than you can think, and that's what they're going to prey on. They're going to keep going, and most of them want to get you to make an action right then. They want to get you up, get you moving, and keep you on the telephone to where they can keep you from thinking. Because if you hang the phone up on them and you pick the telephone up and you call your loved one, whoever that is, or you call somebody else so they tell you it's your grandchild, you call your child to verify where they're at. Have you heard from them? They may have talked to them 10 minutes ago and everything's fine. If not, they'll start making a phone call. But if they say they're in Cookeville and they've been in a car wreck, call the local police department, call the THP, call somewhere, law enforcement. If they're saying they're in a wreck or they've been arrested for something, you can verify if that's true.
But Ray Elliott had a call.
In my case, I called the grandson.
But there were two. There were two, though. The first one was last year, maybe, or
yes,
the year
that's
before.
The one we're talking about now. This one is a second call.
Yeah, and his grandson was hurt in a wreck, and
both times
it was kind of the same thing. They had the right answers for all the questions. Well, you don't sound like William. Well, that's because I've been in a wreck. At Ray, the most recent call, though, did one of the things that Captain Davis said. They brought in the lawyer, didn't he?
The first one had the sergeant there that was taking care of his case. And this time, it was a lawyer they called. So, I don't know. What happened was they called, and I realized what it was. So I said, I can't hear you well on the phone. So I went in and got the recorder turned on. And let's first let me make sure what we got here.
Okay, you do that.
Arrived to the scene. They performed a breathalyzer test, and I failed because of a glass of wine. Jail right now for DUI. I'm so ashamed of it.
What jail are you in?
At the county jail here in Allentown. I have a public defender. He's telling me that I have to post a bond, and I was calling you for help to see if there's any way I can have him call you and tell you how you can help me post my bond from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I promised.
Yeah, when did this all happen, you say? When?
Today in the AM. That's when I got into the car wreck.
Oh.
But they're telling me I have to get off the phone. Do you think there's any way I can have them give you a call now?
Well, I don't know. I'm sort of stunned.
He's going to tell you how you can help me from there, and the officer's telling me I have to get off the phone. And I'm stuck right now, please.
Well, let me talk to him.
Okay, I already gave him your number, so I have to hang up. He's going to call you in about 2 minutes, and he's going to tell you how to help from there, okay?
Okay.
I tell you what, Ray, you find the part where he called back, and Captain, let's talk about that. So this particular call, Ray's got the attorney's going to call back,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a pressure situation. You have to take some action now, Papa, Granddad.
Do it right now.
And your mind is spinning because all this is going on.
Absolutely. They want to keep the pressure on you because if you have a chance to think, Ray's going to think, that really doesn't sound like my grandson.
Right.
There's something else going on here. I'm going to call whoever and verify where he's at. I'm going to call and see if I can find out something more about it because they don't want him making a phone call to the jail in Allentown. They don't want him trying to find out because they're not going to be able to verify he's there and the gig's up.
So, not to ask you the police department's business exactly, but is that something the police department would do? Would the Allentown Police Department call you or me or somebody randomly and say, "Send us some money"?
No.
Ever?
Never.
We have these scams reported from Greeneville Light and Power. The banks call, and it's always something that they never, ever do.
Yeah.
The police department will not call and ask you to send me money to help out somebody.
You may have someone that first of all, of course, we don't house prisoners.
Yes.
They go to the detention center. Someone from, if we arrest somebody for, let's use this example, DUI, they may get a telephone call to where they can call their loved one and say, "Hey, I've been arrested for DUI. I need somebody to help me make bond." They might get a phone call from a bonds person asking them to come post the initial part of bond. But that's a totally separate situation. You're not going to get an attorney on the telephone, an attorney's representative. It's going to be a bond company. But they're not going to push you. That's your option. If you want to make that bond, you can make it. If you don't want to, they can sit in jail.
But nothing is ever going to be settled in the next 30 minutes. And whether it's this particular type of swindle or whether it's a late charge on your power bill, nothing gets settled in 30 minutes by FedExing or sending some money or giving you my bank account.
Absolutely not.
We're talking this morning with Detective Captain Tim Davis with the Greeneville Police Department, and Ray Elliott's got some more audio that we're going to play in just a minute. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Captain Davis about who these people are, how do they get this information, and what should you do if somebody calls and says your loved one is hurt and I need help. All that coming up here in just a few minutes here on WGRV. 25 minutes past 10 o'clock at WGRV. We asked Detective Captain Tim Davis with the Greeneville Police Department to come down today and join us and talk about phone scams and swindles. And Ray Elliott got a call here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and you heard just a bit of the first portion of that attempt where
Which
it was
supposed to be the grandson.
Yeah. But then he said, "I'm going to have a lawyer call you back and tell you how you can help me." So let's hear a little bit of that and get a sense of what they say.
Dave.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Elliott.
Yes, who am I talking to?
You're speaking with Anthony O'Connor, public attorney. I'm with Allentown County Public Defenders, and I'm the public defense attorney assigned to your relative's case.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Elliott. He was just granted a brief phone call here at the county. Did he contact you with the details?
Yes.
Regarding his current situation? Oh, he has. Good. So you know exactly what's going on.
Well, now tell me about it.
Report for you, okay?
So what's going on?
He's been involved in a two-car collision, sir. Suffered minor injuries to his nose and mouth, but has been attended to medically, so he is doing fine. However, he is being charged with aggravated vehicular assault due to the car accident.
Yes?
And he's also being charged with a minor DUI, I suppose. It was 1 point over the state legal limit. Now, we're scheduled for an arraignment shortly here within a couple of hours. If my client formally charged, worst case scenario, he can be held in custody for 2 to 4 months until the next court date. Good news is he doesn't have any priors. If able to post a bond prior to the arraignment, I can get him out today with no criminal charges. But of course, you will have to return to court at a given court date today after the arraignment. Now, he's given me your number as his emergency contact. It's my purpose of my call. Stating that you help him post a bond. Is that correct?
And what are we talking about?
Well, for you, you'd have to come up with at least $7,000 in order to post bond for him.
So he's going for the big fish with Ray there. He wants $7,000.
$7,000, that is correct.
That's just for what?
Aggravated vehicular assault and a DUI.
So, Tim, let's stop it right there for a second, Ray. Is there a little bit of the fear that, well, what if this is real?
Oh yeah.
I mean, what if William really was involved in an accident and I don't take action?
There's going to be that fear, but we don't want to.
That's what they're
feeding on.
Yeah.
They're feeding on the fact that fear is going to take over, and it's going to drive you further than common sense will. It's going to cause you to do something that you normally would not do.
Because they've honed this pitch.
Oh,
they've given it time and time again.
And it's a practiced act.
He's well spoken.
Performance.
He's very professional. He uses all the right words.
Mm-hmm.
How, I would ask, how do you know that it's a swindle? But really, isn't the answer that if anybody calls you, it's probably a swindle? I mean, it just almost always is going to be that way.
Yeah, and the only thing I can tell you, Ron, is you can't let that fear outdrive your common sense. You've got to stop. If you see that a building's on fire, it's on fire.
Right.
So somebody calling you on the telephone and telling you that Walmart's on fire doesn't mean it's on fire. You've got to see it. That's why you're there.
Right.
You drive up there to see it before you report that it's on fire, correct?
Right.
That's the same thing you're dealing with here. Stop. Don't take that because you don't know who that person on the other end of the phone is. Even if they're telling you that they're your grandson, that doesn't mean that that's who they are. You verify. You want to follow through on what you're doing.
That was going to be the next question.
But verify what information you're getting is true. What they don't want you to do, and the reason they keep putting the full court pressure on you, is they want you to make a mistake that you wouldn't normally do. They don't want to give you time to think and verify. So just, okay, can I get a telephone number? And I'll call you back. And if you ask that question, they're going to say is, well, no, I don't know that we're going to be able to do that. Right now, it's got to be done right now, or they're going to put him, there's something bad going to happen to him.
Even if I want to call you right back this very second, they've got an answer for everything that I'll
They're going to have it. They're going to have an answer, but you've got to close it. You've got the name of the agency that he's being held at. Hang that telephone up. As I've said before, what I tell my parents, what I tell everybody I talk to, is if you answer the telephone and they start with something like this, get that information. If it's a loved one, get that information, hit the off button, hang it up.
But do you find that I do this as much as I can't stand telemarketers? Somebody called me this morning here to ask about extending the warranty on my vehicle. I did not want that call. It made me mad that I got that call. But, Tim, I still didn't want to just hang up on them because that's rude, and I was raised not to be rude. Isn't there a little bit of that? Don't you think
we were
hate?
Raised in the South, Ron, and it's true. And it's rude, but it was just as rude for them to call us.
There you go. And these people are not there to do you any favors.
No, they are not there to ask you to church on Sunday.
Where are they? Are they, these guys, obviously they speak English. They may have a little bit of an accent regional wise, but
they run the gambit. We get them everywhere from, it used to be the majority of them, the FBI had tracked the majority of them to being centered out of Jamaica.
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of things. Now they're everywhere. They can be, they've tracked them to New York City. They've tracked them to most of your big cities will have a group there. They recruit people. They hire people to sit in a room and make these phone calls. They'll give them a script. They read the script. They pass them off. It's like going to a car lot and buying a car. You deal with the car salesman
Right.
that walks in the door, and who's he bring in when you get down to the negotiating the price? He's got to bring in the
next
closer,
person, yes,
right?
Right.
That's what they're doing here. Is that's the salesman throws the pitch out there, and then once you bite, say, yeah, I could probably help. Okay, I've got to have this guy's going to give you a call, and they're going to bring in the big gun, and that frees him up to come in and make that next call.
Ray, what did they ask you to do? What was, in both instances, the first time they wanted you to go, if I remember, to multiple drugstores and get several Visa cards.
Yeah, they did that. And in this case, he asked for $7,000, and I indicated, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know where I could get it. And so you see what he does when he comes down.
He backs off of that
Yeah,
and comes to a lower price.
Yeah.
So what do they want, Tim? They
want every penny you are willing to send them. If it gets down to $500, that's what they'll
that's
take.
what it would take to get
That's
my
what it
loved
takes
one
to
in.
get them off of there. And then if you do that, something's going to happen. They're going to try to milk you for more.
So if Ray had said, I don't have $7,000, I only have $500, miraculously, there would have been an avenue through which this lawyer...
That $500 would have worked for now.
You put that down and I'll blank, blank, blank.
Yes.
That would have worked for now.
Let me give you the last one we dealt with. I'll give you, this is true life, happened right here in Greene County, Tennessee.
Yeah.
We had a lady that she's one of our senior citizens. She answers the phone, and it's her grandson who is traveling. She knows that. Doesn't know where he's going, just knows that he's out of town. Person says he's been involved in an accident. The lady that he hit, or the young lady that he hit, was pregnant, and the child was in danger. The family doesn't want to see the kid hurt. This was an attorney's representative, they tell her. And they just need the medical bills paid for, and that if she will send them $5,000 cash through FedEx, that they can settle this, and it'll be all good. So she goes to her bank and withdraws $5,000 in cash, puts it in a FedEx envelope. They give her an address. She puts it on there, drops it in a FedEx box, and it gets shipped. The next day, they call her back and say, okay, we've got bad news. We got that money, thank you, but that child, the baby has died. They've had to take the baby. It's died as a result of the accident. And the family still doesn't want to see your grandson in any trouble for this, so they just need help with the funeral arrangements and the medical expenses from that. So if you can send us another $10,000, they're willing to let everything go.
Yeah.
She, being a good-hearted person, good Christian woman, I happen to know this lady, known her a long time. She drives to the bank, gets out and goes in and tries to withdraw the money. The bank, because she's banked there for so long, they know this is well out of her normal procedure. They get on the phone and call her family members and say, hey, there's something going on. They question her, and she tells them what's going on, and they know it's a scam.
Right.
They are able to convince her no. Get a hold of her son, who gets a hold of his sister. They're able to find out he's nowhere in Kentucky. He's safe and sound somewhere out west. He is traveling. He comes back it turns out we get a call. We do a report on it. We call the local agency in Kentucky. They go to the house where the money originally was dropped off, and by FedEx, they had delivered over the last week. FedEx confirmed they had made deliveries there two or three times, same type of packages. It was a abandoned, condemned, boarded up house, but they just dropped the package off on the front porch as was directed, and left. So somebody has sat and watched it. As soon as they see the package being delivered, they go get it and drive off. There's no way for us to track who it was. And we know that one other scam doing the exact same thing was delivered the day before, and that scam originated out of Florida. A lady in Florida got hit.
What if you get taken, that money's not coming back, is it?
No.
There's no way. I mean, not to say that law enforcement doesn't do a good job of investigating, but these are so...
There's just no... And if you do the cards like Ray was saying, once you give them the number, when you give that person the numbers off the back of that card, that money will leave that account immediately, and it will transfer probably 3 or 4 times, and there's just no way we can track it to be able to gather that, be able to get those funds back, because eventually it'll change cards 2 or 3 times, and then they will dump the money out of it, draw it for cash, and the person that actually gets the cash will not be the person that originally it was sent to, and won't be the person that it originates at. That person will draw the cash and send it to somebody else. So it's the best thing, the easiest thing, the way to keep from being a victim of this is to hang telephone up. I know that seems extremely simple, but it's the only surefire way not to become a victim. Don't give anybody any money unless you know who they are and you know where it's going for 100% sure.
And this is something that didn't happen on this frequency or with this effectiveness maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
No. But it wasn't. Money wasn't as easy. 15, 20 years ago, we didn't have the credit cards, the prepaid credit card, debit cards, as easily as we do now, and people just didn't,
Well, you mentioned it with the information that's available on the internet.
Yeah.
I can find out. I can probably find out how long you've lived in the house you've lived in, how many other people have lived in that house. I know that you can, if you get on Facebook, unfortunately, you can find out far more than people need to be putting on Facebook.
That's why I don't have social media.
Do these people do that level of research, or is it just I'm going to call randomly and maybe I get a hook this time, or a little bit of both, maybe, I guess.
Probably a little bit of both, but they do a lot of Facebook social media stalking. Right. I don't want to give Facebook a bad name. There are a lot of social media outlets out there, and they all have really good intentions and good usages, but there's always an evil behind, an evil or a bad side to any good aspect. Right. It can always be used for bad. And that's what they're doing with these things.
We're talking with Detective Captain Tim Davis of the Greeneville Police Department. We'll take one last break and come back and wrap it up. Tim's been kind enough today to come and talk to us about phone scams and swindles, and we'll wrap it up here in just a minute on WGRV. Detective Captain Tim Davis of the Greeneville Police Department joins us in our studios this morning. We're talking about phone scams and swindles. And, again, Captain, we talked about it. The fear is, what if I don't do this? I've got a loved one that's in a very serious situation. If that were the case, first, this is not how the process is going to work. If there's an accident, you're just not calling me out of the blue to tell me this random information on a loved one. That's not how you all operate, is it?
It is not.
You don't call and say, send the police department $7,000.
No.
Attorneys don't call and say, is immediacy. I guess immediacy is the thing that's the common thread here. I'm not saying an attorney might not call and say, you need to retain me and here's how we go about it, but it's never, and I got to have this money this very second.
Yeah, correct. And attorneys aren't going to say, you need to send me this money right now. And in Ray's case, I can get your son out. He may have to sit in jail for a couple of months till the next court date, or I can get him released today with no criminal charges. That's not going to happen. He's either charged or he's not charged. He may be able to be released pending his next court date, but the attorney doesn't care if the client sits in jail or doesn't sit in jail. He's retained to give him legal defense. He can legally defend him if he's sitting in jail or if he's at home with you. The money for that bond, he may try to help you go through the process if you want to do that, but he's not going to advocate to get the money. And the person, as far as his fee, he doesn't have to put any effort into it until you send him money, so he's in no hurry.
Ray, on this last call,
Listen to how convincing he sounds.
How did your last call end up? Did you call him out on it, and did he admit it? How did he know that you were not what you were pretending to be, and that was a gullible person that was about to fall for it?
I let him know along the line. Now let you hear it.
Okay.
Today, if he's formally charged, he will be held in custody for 2 to 4 months. Scenario. Good news is he doesn't have any priors. If we're able to post a bond prior to the arraignment, I can get him out today with no criminal charges. Schedules him a court date for him to return to court.
Okay. Was he in his own car?
No, he was not. He was driving a friend's car. License plates for Pennsylvania.
I see. Well, I don't know where you get that much money.
Well, you don't have to pay all of it, sir. Haven't you heard of a Bell's bondsman?
You mean go and get it from a bonds person?
No, sir. I have a Bell's bondsman already.
Oh, you are one.
Yeah. If you can come up with $3,500, I can get him out.
For
$3,500.
yeah, 35.
Can you do that?
How could I send money there? I don't understand how this could work.
Well, it's simple. A wire transfer will take about some time for it to get to the department, and then you can also mail it as well through security mail. That's the only way you can get cash to us.
I see. Well, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Have you been to school?
I sure have.
Officer school?
I sure have.
And you swore to do
I sure did.
duty?
I sure did.
Well, I suggest, sir, that you do that.
Okay.
You do your duty. And stop making calls like this, because I'm going to use this on the radio to tell people not to take scams like this. This is a terrible thing for you to do. You can better make money some other way.
Oh, it's nothing of that sort, sir. Something must be mixed up here. I understand what's going on.
I'm sure that if you're an attorney, you can make money another way without working with a scam. So I just suggest you.
Now, Ray's getting on him here.
job.
He's schooling him here. Well,
We got him, didn't we?
yeah, Captain, again, I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us, and we've gone much longer than we normally do on these, but I think it's such an important thing, because even when we have talked about this, Ray and I've had people call and say, but my case sounded a little different, because it scared me, and I think some of them have gone through with it.
There's been quite a few. Ray, I can't tell you, it doesn't go, I never go a month without getting one of those phone calls where somebody has been a victim. Now, I get them every week where people say, I need to report this scam to you. What did you do? I hung the telephone up on them.
Yeah.
Thank you. But at least once a month, I get one where they've been hit for, between $500 and $500, and this last one was $5,000. There may be some different changes like we talked about, but they are basically the same script, just remove this section, plug this other section in, and if you look at them at a distance, they're the same scenario.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what happened to me, though. They called the next day with the same scam. So
there's
they
not
don't
just
even, they
one
don't even
group.
have a record of what they do.
But it's not just one group, Ray. There are multiple groups across the nation that are doing this same thing, and they don't know. I mean, it's not like it's not like it's one conglomerate doing it. it's separate individual cells that do it.
Yeah.
We focused on a loved one being hurt or in jail, and I mentioned the Greeneville Light and Power. Every now and then they'll call and say there's a scam going around. That's not a Greeneville Light and Power issue. It's the exact same thing as this. It's just a different script they're using.
They just use a different script. It's not the Greeneville Light and Power. They're not going to call and tell you if you don't pay your bill right now, we're going to cut your power off. You know what'll happen? They'll cut your power off,
Right,
and then you can come pay your bill, and they'll turn it back on.
So what about Debbie with Member Rewards that calls me all the time with card services? Hey, this is Debbie with card services.
Well, you don't want my answer for that. I've blocked so many numbers in my cell phone now that eventually somebody that I really want to talk to is going to end up with that number, and I'm not going to get their phone call.
So there are ways of making it look like it's a different number.
Yeah, it's called spoofing.
Yeah.
They spoof a number. My chief, Tim Moore, got a phone call from his personal cell phone on his work cell phone the other day.
Oh, really?
Yes. from some robocall service, and those things happen.
So if I came up to a random person on the street and said, I want to give you $100,000, they would probably bring up the old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Probably is.
So is the corollary to that, if it sounds that bad, it probably isn't true either. I mean, that's what they're that's what they're trying to do, making it sound as bad as it possibly could be.
And I'm not saying by any means don't believe that there's something, just blow it off and don't believe there's something wrong with your loved one.
Right.
Call and verify.
Call, trust but verify.
Verify, for sure,
Verify.
yes.
So, all right, Captain Davis, thank you very much. Hang up the phone if you get it. You don't have to listen to any of it at all. You don't have to listen to the whole pitch or spiel. If somebody calls and says, just hang up and call your grandson. Call the Light and Power.
They can't tug your heartstrings if you don't stay on the phone with them to listen.
When we say that, you don't call the number back, or can you call the number back that they call from? Or is that usually, if it's spoofed, you probably can't do that.
If you do, it's going to give you some recording, or it's going to tell you it doesn't exist. Something's wrong with it. Or you'll get some poor unfortunate guy that's got the telephone, lady that's got that number, and they're going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. And you'll know it because it won't be the same person, and they'll truly be confused. I've gotten those phone calls where my number has been used, my work number has been used, and I will answer my work number. This is Captain Davis, how can I help you? And they'll go, who? All right, let's stop. Here's what's going on.
Right.
And that happens.
Maybe everybody should answer the phone. Good morning, Captain Davis.
I don't know that you want to do that either.
Well, Tim Davis, thank you very much for coming in and joining us this morning. It's a very important thing, and we talk about it when that happens, and we hear about it on the news. And anytime, I keep saying Light and Power because it seems like that's another one that really puts you in a spin right there. I'm going to cut your power off, as opposed to you're late on your bill. Well, I get those calls all the time. I'm used to that. And I know what's going to happen there. They're going to give me another month.
Yeah.
But if my power's going off, or if my grandson is hurt, or if Mama has backed into a child in the parking lot, I can make it sound as bad as I want. Mm-hmm. Just hang up the phone.
That's correct.
And then call Mama and ask her.
Yes, call the number that Grandma has.
All right. Well, Captain, thank you very much for joining us. We took a long time, a lot longer than we normally do, and I appreciate you sharing that time because I think it's a very important thing. And
I hope it helps.
I hope just hang up the phone. Just hang up the phone.
Please.
All right. Detective Captain Tim Davis with the Greeneville Police Department.